grounding, which is the earth, and we had to have an antenna, an aerial, which is the, you could say, the positive and negative understanding of how energy flows. Like the Mobius twist, everything is in vortexual motion. It never really begins or ends. And in order to tap it at a point where it's going to be beneficial, you have to have an antenna, and you have to have a grounding at per se in our experiments. And later on, we found we didn't need that because there was other ways of attaining a ground. We used the magnetic field around the Earth, and we, you might say, tweaked it so that we had a grounding, and it wasn't necessary to ground ourselves. There is no threat to the system as far as people wanting the horse and buggy. The Amish still have the horse and buggy. The Quakers have the horse and buggy. The car lovers, enthusiasts, classic cars are still Corvettes. There's still Maseratis, there's Lamborghinis. They don't have to give any of that up. We just want to add to the system. We want to, like they added airplanes, now we want to add a vehicle, a ship, if you will, a circular foil craft that would be both habitation and transportation. And they could be as large as you wanted. You could have farms, you could have waterfalls, you could have lakes, you could have anything on them. It doesn't matter. The technology that I'm speaking of doesn't sound very familiar because it's ether in essence, and it has to do with the creative powers of the mind. And once you realize how creative we really are, you can do anything. There is nothing that's impossible to do, and we've done it. We've been there and done it, and now we want to present this over and over again until they allow us the privilege of showing them what we got. Well, we experimented with both, and it took Carr years to finally, in many experiments, lots of time, lots of money, to finally arrive at a very hollow double tetrahedron, just like shaped like a diamond, or two ice cream cones, one on top of the other at the base. And this being because it contained all the geometric configurations of the platonic solids, which, there's a square, there's a circle, etc., the pyramid, all in one object, which is now being called the accumulator. And once you take that and you understand through sacred geometry the rivers of space, the magnetic fields, everything has the magnetic fields around it, through it, and in it. And once you understand that, then you can accumulate energy, and no batteries necessary. The accumulation and distribution is all one, and it goes on forever. There's no need for batteries, etc., because you're actually piggybacking nature, energy itself. There's nothing but energy, and you're piggybacking that and using it as such. You're grabbing on, and it would be like grabbing onto a streetcar and going where your destination might be a mile away and then letting go. It's the same thing with energy. It's everywhere, so you have only to grab onto it, to use it. And it's inexhaustible. It goes on forever. I really don't know, because the materials in those days are very antiquated compared to what we have today. And to say silicone or poly anything would be a mistake, because I don't know what it was. I'm not sure. Yeah, right. Yeah, that and those, I don't know where they're at now in aluminum, but that in those days that was the best you could get, and that's what we wanted. Um, the other parts of the craft, some of them were conventional parts. You know, I machined some of the little parts and stuff, but I don't really remember too much about the details of everything. Yeah, true. Now that the outer ones differ in the sense that they were solid, but they were suspended on both tips, like the diamond, the double tetrahedron, so that they could turn. So if the natural flows of energy caused them to turn, so what? Or if we didn't care and it could have been used to its advantage if we understood it, but it wasn't necessary. So we just had them suspended through, and they were going through horseshoe magnets. The answer to that has to be multi because it's not a single answer. Like a generator is a motor, and a motor is a generator, just depending on how you're using it, or your windings, or your understanding of what a generator does and what a motor does, and so forth. So the accumulator was capable of doing many, many things. You know, it wasn't just to operate a spaceship per se. In fact, the initial idea was to make up small um, uh, uh, prototypes, boxes, if you will, call them black boxes, that you could, with an antenna on it, and give everyone a box for their home eventually. That they could, they'd have to be able to take the responsibility of dealing with the power companies or whatever, but we wanted to, at least as far as our finances would go, give them out to as many people as we could, to have them be our advertising and our PR work, so that they say, yes, I've had these things and it's been working fine, and so forth. But we never got that far. But the question is that the answer to the question, the accumulator was not built just for the spaceship. It was built to tie in with the laws of nature, to the oneness of it all. That's the oneness is the inexhaustible energy that's always flowing, and that can be used anywhere. You can put it, if you had a small accumulator that was in perfect alignment, you could put it on anything, any conventional thing now could properly adapted, could be, the plug could be pulled from the wall and you could operate it with these small accumulators. Yeah, the spindle, I'm not, I don't, you know, I don't recall the spindle. It must have, I don't recall the spindle ever going through the accumulator, but apparently maybe it did. I never saw the inside of it. I knew that it was hollow. There was nothing in there. And I would think that any insertion of anything in there would disrupt the sacred geometry, unless it was designed to work that way. But I don't know. The most effective way that can be helping in this entire agenda, or this entire intention, is to be who and what they really are, to not hold anything in pretension anymore, not to have to say yes to something they mean no to, or no to something they mean yes to align their heart with their mouth, with their brain, and say what they really feel and do what they really feel. This will affect the change necessary not only in them but in the collective consciousness, which is all of us. And if we all do this collectively together, if we can get the idea of standing our ground, and with the threat of being fired, with the threat of losing your home or car, stand your ground, because you have the power of the multiverse with you. You don't have the threats and worries and fears and doubts of the third dimension any longer if you don't want it. We bring these things on because we've given our power away because of fear and doubts. And we now have to take our power back, realizing simply, I'm me. I can't help it. I love it. And just love yourself, love what you're doing, and brace yourself, because there are tests. The tests that you're giving yourself. Nobody out there is giving them to you but yourself. But there are tests that you have to go through. It's in some cases called the ring pass knot. There are, in Buddhist, there's many initiations that you have to go through in life before you can achieve a state of knowing, of being still and peaceful inside. And then along comes the joy, and then eventually you'll find bliss in realizing everywhere you go is heaven, everywhere, everything you do. If you want something to change, you can have a contrast, because you can create it. If you want disturbance, you can create it. But it's in control of you, nobody else. So the best thing in the way of helping would be to raise the consciousness. Of course, we have people in the field now spending long hours, day and night, like Walter, who's filming this episode right now. He's coming here with just his honor, his dedication, his devotion to seeing that these words and ideas are getting out to the people. No pay, nobody really sponsoring or taking care of his needs and so forth. And there are people in our pods. We call them pods. They're just small groups of people. They're all over the world, in Australia and New Zealand and everywhere, are working on a shoestring. So if you happen to have money that you really don't know what to do with and you'd like to make a better world of it, that's up to you. But we're not asking for it. But I'm covering all bases in the answer to the question that whatever you feel is your motivation or your dedication to what we're trying to do will be welcomed and used effectively to affect the change. First of all, there are three well-known stages of knighthood. One is the Knights of Malta. One is the Knights of St. John, which are affiliated with the Knights of Malta. And then there's the Knights Templar. That's the three well-known knights. There are knights everywhere in the world on different levels, and some of them are rogue knights. They just go around affecting changes and helping people, not asking for anything in return. And that's what true knighthood is. It doesn't want to do anything but protect the rights of others to pursue whatever life they want. The changes now in knighthood are being observed on a very large and deeply rooted scale. That being, they were and still are to this day an organization. They are a corporate organization that has rules and regulations based on third-dimensional realities with contracts, et cetera, in a sense. It's not as drastic as the contracts we have with General Motors or PG&E or whatever, but it is still a monarchy where they're being told you must adhere to this and that, like a religion. It's similar to a religion, although it's much deeper, because a knight is dedicated, and you have to be dedicated. You're a knight before you're a knight. You have to have it in your heart and soul to want to be a guardian of people's rights to pursue the life the way they want, in any way they want, no restrictions, nothing. And the organizations have restrictions. You really have to do this and wear this and so forth. So now they're dissolving, the organizations, and many of us, Marcia and I, were both knights in the Knights Templar. We've pulled away from the structure and have become what's known as rogue knights. We still now are free to be silent nights. We can go out and affect changes, just what we're doing. Quietly we go at no charge. We put on lectures all over the place at our own expense and so forth because we enjoy doing it, and that joy brings us great satisfaction in the people realizing what we're talking about and waking up and letting us know, wow, I never knew that, and things like that. That's where we get our energy. So the Knights of Malta, we have we have friends that are Knights of Malta, and the Knights of St. John are, and the Knights, there's the Knights Hospitallers. We have one of our pods is is located in Australia. It's called Path of Divine Restoration, and it's run by Knights that are rogue Knights, and we are doing and being effective in changing the realities of what's been going on in the way of tyranny, in the way of servitude and so forth. They are they're very actively alive, and they have pulled away from structure. So they're all now rogue Knights. There are Knights in Canada, same thing. They're becoming rogue Knights, pulling away from the structure, which frees us to be who and what we are, to be on our own free will, to be responsible for our own action. We don't have to adhere to anybody except our source, which is God. And when we're in touch with that source, we're being led where we can help and affect a positive or a constructive change in reality. And so on it goes. The structures now, all corporate structures now are feeling the effects of what's happening. Everything is in a flux, a change. And they are disintegrating because they were built on grains of sand instead of a solid foundation. The first